अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan did not want Pandavas to get any part of the kingdom of Hastinapur. However, due to insistence of Vedvyas, Bhishma Pitamaha, Vidur and the citizens of Hastinapur, Dhritarashtra very unwillingly made Yudhishthir the crown prince. Now Duryodhan was even more jealous, and he hatched a plot with Shakuni to kill the Pandavas. In a place called Varanavrat, he deputed his architect Purochan to make a beautiful palace which was made with a flammable material called lacquer, or it's the bark of a tree. And on the pretext that the Pandavas should go and attend a festival for Lord Shiva in that city, he took permission from Dhritarashtra to send them to Varanavrat. Their plan was that while the Pandavas along with their mother Kunti would be staying in that palace, they would burn the palace down and all of them will be killed. However, by the mercy of Lord Krishna, Vidur got a hint of this plot and indirectly cautioned the Pandavas what they were going to encounter when they went to Varanavat. He also arranged for a miner to go, for a person who can dig through the earth. He arranged for him to go to Varanavat and dig secretly a tunnel under the palace that led a distance away up to the river. When the Pandavas were staying in that palace, Purochan was looking for the right time to burn the palace down. However, Bhim, knowing what the plot was, would stay awake all night and not give a chance to Purochan to carry out this heinous act. One day, on the day of Amavasya, the Pandavas secretly went down through the tunnel and escaped from that palace. And that day Purochan, when he did not see Bhim, he burnt the palace. Everyone thought that the Pandavas have died, and now Duryodhan was crowned as the prince for the kingdom of Hastinapur. After escaping from there, the Pandavas lived in the forests in the form of Brahmins for some time, and then they heard from a group of travelling sages that the king of Panchal, Drupad, was planning a Swayamvar for his daughter Draupadi. In fact, Drupad had wanted to marry Draupadi to Arjun. You know why? Because King Drupad had been defeated by Arjun on behalf of Dronacharya. Dronacharya and Drupad were good friends at an early age, and when they were young, Drupad promised half of his kingdom to Dronacharya. However, when he became the king of Panchal, and Dronacharya, because of great poverty that he was facing, approached him to give him part of the kingdom to fulfill the vow that he had taken, Drupad at time refused to even recognize who Dronacharya was. Dronacharya decided to take revenge, but he waited. And then when he taught the Pandavas, and especially Arjun, made him a great warrior, that time he asked Arjun to go and get half of the kingdom for him. Arjun defeated Drupad, took half of his kingdom and gave it to Drona. To take a revenge from Dronacharya, Drupad performed a yajna to beget a son which would become the cause of Dronacharya's death. As part of that yajna, Drishtadyumna was born as well as Draupadi was born. At that time, a celestial voice announced that Draupadi will become the cause of the destruction of the Kuru dynasty. Of course, it was because of Draupadi that the battle of Kurukshetra in one sense took place and all the 100 Kauravas lost their lives. So Drupad had wanted to wed his daughter to Arjun, but when he heard that Pandavas have all died in the fire in the palace in Varnavat, he decided to arrange a Swayamvar so that Draupadi could choose a husband of her choice. So when the Pandavas came to know about this, they also went to the kingdom of Panchal and participated in the Swayamvar. The condition was that one had to pierce the eye of a fish by looking at the reflection of the fish in the water underneath. Many kings tried, but everyone failed, and this fish was actually rotating in a circular fashion up on the top of a pole, and its reflection was in the water down. Only Arjun was able to pierce the eye of the fish, and therefore Draupadi was given in marriage to Arjun. Arjun, along with his 4 brothers, then approached their mother Kunti to tell her what they had won. Kunti was busy in doing some chores at that time, and when they said, "Oh mother, look what arms we have brought today," Kunti, without seeing what or whom they have brought, just said, "Whatever it is, divide among yourself." Now these 5 Pandavas were very obedient, and whatever the mother would say, they would follow. So they decided to accept Draupadi as wife for all of them. When Dhritarashtra came to know that the 5 Pandavas were still alive, he invited them back to Hastinapur. But while they were gone, Duryodhan had connived and plotted to get himself also announced as the crown prince. When the Pandavas came back, then the issue came, now who would be the crown prince? And there was a lot of discussion back and forth, and finally Duryodhan agreed not to give Hastinapur, but he decided to give them another half of the kingdom, which was not developed, which was barren, hostile, arid land. That time it was called Khandav Prastha, because all along this area only shrubs and were growing, and it was not at all inhabitable. However, the Pandavas worked very hard, and with the help of Krishna, Arjun first set fire to that forest, clearing the land, and then with the help of Maydanav, they built a beautiful lavish city which was even more amazing than the heavenly planets. There were so many things in there that were absolutely astonishing. For example, one would see that there is a wall, solid wall, but actually it was not solid wall. You could walk through it. One place someone would see, oh, there is a fountain of water, but actually it was just an illusion. There was no fountain of water there. And when Duryodhan came to see this palace, and he was walking through all these various amazing things, he came upon a point where he saw that there was a solid courtyard. However, when he stepped on it, he felt there was a water splash, and he found himself waist deep in water. Draupadi, along with her maid, was standing on a balcony, And when she saw this, she was very amused and started laughing and joked, Andhasya putra andha. Oh, a blind man's son is blind. Duryodhan could not take this. He became extremely upset, and that time, in his heart, he decided that I am going to revenge this. Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj explains, in due course of time the Pandavas married Draupadi. When Duryodhan discovered that they were still alive, he consulted his father again and invited them to Hastinapur. On the order of grandsire Bhishma and other elders, and at the request of the subjects, the Pandavas were given sovereignty of Khandavprasth, which after they built it was called Indraprasth. There, with the assistance of Sri Krishna and the demon named May, the Pandavas constructed a wonderful palace and city. Within a short time, they conquered all the mighty kings of India and performed a great Rajasuya Yajna. King Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan became extremely jealous of the Pandav as a result of the opulence and success of this yajna, and they conspired to defeat them in a gambling match. They took the Pandav's entire kingdom. How? By the tricks of Shakuni. Shakuni invited them to a game of dice, and he had the dice in such a way that every time it was rolled, the Pandavas would end up losing the bet. When they lost their entire kingdom in the bet, Shakuni and Duryodhan somehow enticed Yudhishthir to bet his 4 brothers. He lost them. Then they enticed him to bet himself. He lost himself. And then they enticed him to bet even Draupadi, and he lost again. Now Dushasan wanted to derobe Draupadi. She was brought into the middle of the assembly, and Dushasan started pulling her sari. At that time, Draupadi looked at everyone, at Bhishma, at Dronacharya, at Yudhishthir, at Bhim, Arjun, Nakul, Sahadev. No one came to her help. At that point, she raised her hands in the air and said, O Govind, O Madhav, Hey Hare Murare, please come and save me. And Krishna became her sari and provided unending sari. Dushasan kept pulling and pulling, but he could not even touch the original sari that Draupadi was wearing. And this was all because Draupadi was a great devotee of Krishna. And once when Krishna's finger was cut and some blood came out, Draupadi, not caring for her new sari that she was wearing, tore it and put it on Krishna's finger. So Krishna remembered, and for that small piece of sari that Draupadi had torn and put on Krishna's finger, Krishna provided her unending sari. Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita that Ye yatha mam prapadyante tan sathai bhajamiham, that I always reciprocate. The way my devotees worship me, I reciprocate accordingly. So then Dhritarashtra realized that this humiliation could cause Draupadi to curse his sons. So he intervened and apologized to Draupadi and returned everything back to the Pandavas. This made Duryodhan even more angry, and then he planned one more game and convinced Dhritarashtra to invite the Pandavas for this last game. The condition here was that anyone who would lose will have to go to the forest for 12 years and live 1 year, the 13th year, in incognito. Unfortunately, the Pandavas lost once again, and they were banished to the forest for 12 years, and the 13th year they lived secretly. Now during this whole time, they were planning to come back and wage a war because they now knew what the intentions of Duryodhan was. So Shri Gurudev explains that the Kauravas took the Pandavas' entire kingdom and forced them into 12 years of exile, and then for 1 more year they had to live incognito. After this prolonged ordeal, Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan still did not return the Pandavas their kingdom. In order to avoid any war, as the Pandavs' ambassador Shri Krishna himself went to Hastinapur and conveyed the request that Duryodhan should at least give them 5 villages. Duryodhan, however, remained unmoved and would not compromise. He told Krishna, "What to speak of 5 villages? I will not even give the Pandavas enough land to hold the tip of a needle unless they defeat me in battle." Bhagwan Shri Krishna appeared in order to establish religion, to protect the saintly persons, and to annihilate the demons. In the course of the Mahabharat battle, he used Arjun and Bhim as instruments to assist him in his plan to relieve the enormous burden weighing heavily upon the earth. So this is how finally the battle of Kurukshetra was started, and in the middle of this battle of Kurukshetra, Shri Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjun, which we will start discussing from the next time. Till that time, Hare Krishna, Radhe Radhe, have a very blessed day.